You know, when I think back to the first time I held a leadership title, I thought it meant that I had to be the one with all the answers, the one who fixed every problem, carried every crisis, and set the pace for everyone. I used to measure my success by how many tasks I could juggle at once, how late I stayed online, and how quickly I replied to emails, even at midnight. I felt like that was proof of dedication, but the truth, that approach wasn't building respect. It wasn't building anything. It was quietly draining me and everyone around me, and it led to nothing but burnout. Hello everyone. Today, I don't want to talk to you about leadership as a ladder to climb faster or louder. I want to talk about it as a lifelong practice, one that truly makes you stronger. If you've ever felt like your effort hasn't been translating into results or real respect from your team, or if you feel that you've given too much but you feel empty on the inside, I want to share some things that I wish I had known earlier. These are not hacks. They're not about winning in meetings or dominating boardrooms. They're about earning trust with everyone, starting with yourself. So the first skill I want to talk to you about is leading yourself first. You can't lead anyone else until you can keep promises to yourself. Years ago, I used to pride myself on always being available. If someone sent a last-minute request at 10 p.m., I would answer it, and I thought it made me indispensable. But over time, and especially when I started growing in my role and leading other people, I noticed that my team started copying me, logging in late, never resting, and always being on the edge. So I was actually teaching them to ignore their limits because I was ignoring mine. So to set a good example, you need to log off when you said you would, and you need to start making decisions that align with your values, even when they cost you approval, and your team needs to see that. Skill number 2 is using silence as a strength. We are conditioned to believe that leaders should be loud, constantly explaining, justifying, or persuading. But I've learned that silence often holds more power than any words ever could. And this is my personal experience. Early in my career, people used to mistake my silence for shyness, and that happened a lot. They think I'm quiet because I either have nothing to add or because I lack confidence. But the truth is, when I'm silent, I'm calculating. I'm analyzing the room, reading between the lines, and deciding if what I have to say will actually move the conversation forward. I don't believe in speaking just to prove that I exist or claim space. If I don't have something that feels like hitting the nail on the head, I stay quiet. And sometimes that restraint can be a very powerful and strategic contribution. And it's also just respect for my own words and for the time and attention of everybody else. Over time, I noticed that when I do speak, people lean in because they know it won't be filler words. It will be deliberate, considered, and necessary, rather than trying to shine the light on myself. Skill number 3 is protecting people's mental bandwidth. Real leadership means respecting your team's headspace, not just their calendars. I'll tell you what I mean by that. We forget that every quick question, every extra message, and every just-in-case task drains focus. Sometimes even more than meetings do. I had this project once where I noticed people were getting everything done technically on time, but the depth of their thinking was very shallow. And that wasn't because they weren't capable, but because their minds were pulled in 10 different directions at the same time. And that is something you will never identify as an issue if you're only focusing on analyzing their utilization, availability, or time reporting. So I realized that leadership isn't about maximizing every single hour, but rather protecting the quality of thought that happens inside those hours. When people have the mental space to think deeply, solve bigger issues, and grow and develop, that builds a level of respect and loyalty that no time reporting will ever do. Skill number 4 is creating true psychological safety. A lot of leaders say, I want honest feedback, but do they really think about that, the moment someone disagrees, they shut down or retaliate, even in subtle ways. I remember a colleague that gave feedback on a team call that was brave, thoughtful, and exactly what we needed. But a week later, I noticed that they were excluded from the next meeting, and no one else on the team shared any feedback then. That moment taught me that if you punish honesty, you will breed silence. As a leader, if you want trust, you have to show, not just say, that truth is welcome, and more importantly, protected. Skill number 5 is protecting your energy like it's an asset. I used to think that being the first one in, the last one out proves leadership. But when you give your energy away without limits, people start depending on your depletion rather than learning resilience themselves. Now, I decline meetings that don't need me, and I don't reply to every late night message. And the surprising result is that my presence feels more intentional and my guidance lands deeper. So remember that protecting your energy doesn't make you less of a leader. Instead, it makes you a more sustainable one. Skill number 6 is very difficult for people with a big ego, but you need to start stepping away to strengthen others. The real test of your leadership is what still thrives even if you're not there. And one of the most overlooked skills in leadership training is learning when to step away, not to abandon, but to allow others to step forward. As I grew into higher roles, I started to see leadership less as personally handling every detail and more as shaping strong, self-sufficient teams. I began mentoring others to do what I once did, and not just by handing off tasks, but by sharing and explaining the reasoning and the judgment behind each decision. At first, of course, there was a natural tension. The question of, will they approach it the same way? Will they feel confident without me next to them? But over time, I realized that they don't even need to replicate my approach. I had to learn how to start guiding others to develop their own style and strength, which is honestly the most fulfilling parts of leadership for me. In any industry, the higher you climb, the more essential it gets to let go of the day-to-day and focus on developing people. And the ultimate measure of your leadership changes from being what you can personally achieve to whether the people and the systems that you've guided and created can thrive when you step out of the room. Skill number 7 is being okay not knowing. Admitting I don't know doesn't make you less of a leader. It makes you human and trustworthy. To this day, we continue to idolize leaders who seem to have every answer, but no one respects a facade forever. Some of the most impactful moments in my career were when I said, I don't know, let's figure it out together. Those words don't make you weak, they make you human. And when you create space for your team to step into the unknown with you, you stop performing expertise and you start cultivating that collective intelligence that everyone can contribute to. There were even times when I would consciously show a bit more of my own stress or uncertainty, even when I felt completely ready, simply to help a junior team member feel safer expressing their feelings. So I kind of had to fake vulnerability in some cases, even just by remembering what I used to feel stressed out about in the beginning of my career. And that would send a subtle signal to team members that it's okay to feel nervous, we're in this together. So sometimes the most supportive thing you can do as a leader isn't to always appear unshakable. It's to let others know that even strong leaders experience tension, unknowns, or flickers of doubt, and they still choose to move forward. So these are the 7 leadership skills that I feel deserve a pause and deserve that you start embedding them into your leadership style. And speaking of leadership styles, there's one thing that I also learned throughout my career. I noticed that I became more tolerant of other leaders and their styles. I realized that not every leader needs to lead like me. I'm a strategic thinker who rarely speaks. Others are more hands-on, and some still hold on to older ways of working because that's what kept them safe for decades. As a leader, part of your real work is to understand each person, to understand their pain points, their personality, and their unique way of seeing the world. There's no right or wrong here. Sometimes even their hidden day-to-day personal struggles can shape how they show up at work. And don't get me wrong, this does not mean tolerating what's unethical or toxic. That line stays always firm, but it does mean that recognizing that each person is carrying their own story, their own fears, and their own definitions of self-worth. You'll meet aspiring leaders who want to grow and question everything. You'll meet others who developed habits and stayed in their comfort zone for a long time. To each their own. This is why the principles that I shared today aren't about becoming a perfect leader or fitting into one specific style. They are tools that are flexible and deeply personal, and they apply whether you're quiet or outspoken, new to leadership or a seasoned leader. So I hope this was a call for you to work more on your leadership skills and make sure that you're creating environments where each person, including you, can bring their full self to the table and feel respected for it. I'm Tasneem, and this is The Raw Climb. If you're ready to redefine ambition, reclaim your energy, and lead with grounded authority, you're in the right place. Subscribe to this channel and let's climb together. See you next time.